What's up, everybody? I haven't done one of these in a while, so I figured I'd give it a shot again. I'm going to talk about two things. A lot of people have given me feedback on YouTube asking me to kind of explain some different things. A lot of people ask me to kind of show them licks that are like tray licks. I don't know if that's going to work so much because, I don't know, when I'm playing, I'm just kind of playing whatever I'm used to playing. And, whether it sounds like Trey, sweet, it's not really, obviously I'm trying to emulate that style, but I'm not necessarily trying to play exactly what he plays, so, because, he's real good and stuff. So what I am going to talk about is two things in terms of soloing. One being the usage and implementation of the chromatic scale into solos, and another just I guess a couple like sort of Trey sounding riffs and techniques you can use to sound like Big Red. So the example I'll give, as I bang on the guitar here, I'm gonna play Chalk Dust in a little bit, and the first thing I want to talk about, I took like a jazz guitar class when I was in college, and it clearly didn't do anything for me because all I was interested in was kind of sounding like Trey. So everything the teacher told me in terms of jazz technique kind of went in one ear and went out the other. But one thing he did say that stuck with me was, when you solo, use the chromatic scale, because it really, adds some, what would the word be? Adds some meat to your solos, because, the chromatic scale is every note. It's every note on the guitar. So it's really hard, to make a mistake as long as you kind of know what you're doing. And that's why, in terms of phrasing, I think it's most important where you start and where you finish if you want something to sound good. What's in the middle is just kind of, filler, and, if you're good at guitar, then it'll sound good. If you suck at guitar, then it'll suck. That's just the way it is. But, for example, if you're playing it, so I'm going to play Chalk Dust, so I'll play in E minor pentatonic, throw a little bit of E Dorian. But, in E minor pentatonic, this A flat is not part of the scale. These are all not part of the scale. Up here, that's all not part of the scale. But in the chromatic scale, it all works. So, if you were playing a solo in E minor pentatonic, for example, just only using that scale, you might be really good. I'm sure you can make it sound really good, but it's not going to sound anything more like this. Alright, I accidentally hit the Dorian note there by example. But if you're playing with the chromatic scale, then you can fill it out a lot more into something like this. You notice I'm hitting, using my middle finger a lot to play. To play these notes in the middle here, that if you were just playing an E minor pentatonic, you wouldn't mess around with those. In implementing the chromatic scale, you can use any note you want, so as long as you don't end on the wrong note, when you're building a phrase, you don't want it to sound like this. That's not going to sound good. That's not a note that you want to use to build tension. But in the midst of phrasing, it's totally fine to throw that in there. And, people ask, how do you build tension and release? Basically, I'm not an expert on guitar theory or anything, but I think the biggest thing is that, as I mentioned in my last lesson, if you're playing an E, don't end every phrase on E. If you do that, it's going to sound boring and bland, and you're never going to be able to build that tension. I mean, you notice in, especially a song like Chalk Dust, when Trey really gets going, they don't come back to that E until, actually, I think they might resolve it on an A, but they don't come back to that resolution, for 2 minutes. He builds it up and builds it up using notes like, B is a very good note to use. That's why you hear him do this all the time. And then when you finally come back to that E, it's like, alright, you resolved that tension. Sweet. Sounds good. another thing when you're playing a song like that, especially to start jams and stuff, something really cool that he always does is he kind of does this like a bend up to that note. So if you want to start the jam on an E, rather than just the song comes along, it's time to solo, and you just go. A sweet way to start it is to bend up to that E and then take off your solo from there. So instead of going, do this. And by bending up, it makes it sound much cooler. I don't know. I can't get all technical on that. I just know it sounds cooler. Oops. Alright, so I'll play a little bit of Chalk Dust, and I'll play a lot of chromatic scale and a lot of bending. And you'll get to hear, I guess, kind of how it sounds, and then I will stop talking. Alright, so enjoy. So, you heard a little bit of tension release. You heard a little bit of me using the chromatic scale. I did hit a wrong note somewhere in there. I think it was this one, which should not be part of it. But, if you use that to build on your solos, in terms of, what you're playing in between the phrasing, it makes it sound better. Most importantly is, when you're trying to do this whole tension and release thing, it's really important where you end your phrases, because if you end on the root note all the time, you're not building any tension or release. If you end on the wrong note, I don't know, I'm not good at explaining what that might be, but it's not going to build tension and release. What you got to learn to do is to figure out what sounds good. And end on those notes. I mean, a huge difference between myself and Trey, and I don't know, I've never talked to Trey about this. I would love to have the opportunity to, but when I'm playing, I play, I'm listening to what I'm playing, and when I hear something that sounds good, I'll stop on that note. Trey knows what it's going to sound like ahead of time. I mean, he's, when he's soloing, he knows, all right, if I hit this note, that's what it's going to sound like. I can't do that. I don't know. That's why, in my solos I play a lot of, extra notes, because I'm building up to these parts that I can recognize are good, rather than, automatically knowing that it's going to sound good and playing that right away. So, a lot of it depends on how skilled of a musician you are, and a lot of it depends on how skilled of a guitar player you are. So, I mean, I'm a much better guitar player than I am a musician. So that's just the way it works out for me. But, if you practice a lot, that'll be good. Practice makes perfect. That's the best advice I can give. Well, not perfect, but pretty damn good. All right, so yeah, I'm gonna post this on the blog. I'll let everyone know on YouTube, and check it out and leave some comments and feedback. Thanks a lot. Later.